Welcome, everybody, to Edge of the Rabbit Hole. Author and ghost historian Mike Ricksecker here, as always, with my co-hostess, Vanessa Hogle, and our chat Shananigator, Shana, down in the chat room. We have with us tonight our very good friend, Rob Gutro, to kick off the new year. He's a author of several books that he has published now, the latest, Kindred Spirits. He's also a psychic medium. I've known Rob for several years now. He'll come on, talk about pets in the afterlife. We've talked about ghosts in Europe, all kinds of different topics, Rob. He's also a meteorologist, so he also brings that scientific angle along with everything else. So, Rob, great to have you back.
It's great to be back. Always great to be among friends.
We love having you on. We gave you a big old shout out too on rabbit pellets.
Yeah. Oh, thanks.
Yeah. Our podcast that we published, was that yesterday morning it went out, and we were kind of previewing for the beginning of the year. Yeah, we spent a little bit of time on you, Rob.
I'll have to listen. I haven't listened yet.
Please do, and share. Anyone who goes on and listens to Rabbit Pellets or is watching this particular show right now, please hit that subscribe button and the bell. Tell your friends we're sweet people. You know you love us. We're going on 5 years now, so obviously the love is there, okay? So get to work.
Yep. All of the Edge of the Rabbit Hole episodes from now on will be on this new channel. So, and there was the comment in there a little bit earlier about super chats, and that'll happen. We got to hit 1,000 subscribers. So you guys have been doing pretty good so far, up to 200, and we haven't even been broadcasting really from here. So, but Rob, the last time we had you on, we talked about your latest book, Kindred Spirits. And when I was talking with you some weeks ago about you coming back on, we bumped you up to this one, because originally you're supposed to be coming on January 28th, but we had a spot open up, so had you come on early. But you had mentioned wanting to talk about holiday spirits as one of your topics. And so that's always very interesting, because one of the old customs that we don't really do so much anymore was around the holidays, people would sit around and tell ghost stories. And it seems like that's starting to come a little bit back in vogue, but not like it had been, say, like during the Victorian era.
Yeah, that's true. They're even referenced in song and even in the Christmas Carol.
Yeah.
Talking about ghost stories, yeah. So.
Yeah, Christmas Carol, it's one of my favorites. Of course, combining Christmas with ghosts, and the 1970 version of Scrooge with Albert Finney is my favorite. But yeah, that's a ultimate classic there from Charles Dickens.
Yeah. By the way, there's a new take on that, and that's The Man Who Invented Christmas. It came out a couple of years ago, and so we started watching that now as a tradition. It's really cool. It's a cool movie.
Very cool. I haven't seen that yet.
Up. I haven't either. Now, let me ask you, Rob. I mean, do you think the origination of ghost stories during the holidays was more as a remembrance, a fond remembrance, a sharing of love and of tales from the past, or was it to scare? Because today, by today's standards, everybody seems to need to be scared. So it makes me wonder if the origination is going to be different than the rebirth.
That's a good question. I think that people have been telling ghost stories, if you will, though, long before Christmas ever came to be. Mm-hmm. And I think that people have always felt like the spirits of their loved ones were around on special occasions, like even birthdays, anniversaries, or holidays, as I like to say. So I think even in ancient times, and I think I guess when the Christians adopted Saturnalia, the Roman holiday, they took that also.
So it wasn't always just for shock value. It's for many different reasons: lessons, memories, love. So many things that I think we forget nowadays with ghost stories.
Yeah, I think you're right. We were talking about that earlier before we went on too. Mm-hmm. There's a big positive aspect of ghosts, earthbound ghosts, and spirits who have crossed over, especially around the holidays.
Very, very true. Very true.
Let me ask you this: do you think that because people are focused on family and family that has passed on, that they're longing to connect with those people kind of brings those spirits out of the woodwork, for lack of a better term?
I do. I think that anytime you really think of a spirit, they'll actually come around or try to come around and give you a sign that they're there. We can always call on the spirits of our loved ones, and they'll be there to help us out, whether or not we know it. Just like if you do something that's out of character for you, and it winds up saving your life or saving you money, or not getting into a car accident, and you were thinking of that person. Maybe it was that person's birthday or the day they passed or something like that. But there's always spirits helping us out.
I think we forget that. I really do. And I think it's a shame. I think we are always searching, and I say we in the largest terminology possible, the grand we, I'm using that term very broadly, that we ignore the small signs because we're waiting for the big one. It's like not being able to see the forest for the trees. I believe that there are so many little instances and little synchronicities that show that those who have cared about us in the past or have loved us in some way, or that we have shared love with, are always there somewhere in spirit, or just trying to let us know, I got you. I'm still here. And because they're not coming out with a big sandwich board and ringing their bell, we ignore it. Okay.
True.
Oh, come on. They do that to Scrooge. They start ringing the bells.
I know, right? I know. I guess my point is, let's not forget those little things where, like Rob was saying, you get stuck in traffic, for whatever reason, and you're thinking of that person, and something happens, and they saved you from an accident, or whatever it is. It just acknowledge those little instances. Pay your respect by acknowledging them.
Absolutely. And that goes for pets too.
The little dude, I love him.
I always have to throw the pet thing in.
Yeah, no, and that's great that you do. I was on Vegas Supernatural radio show with Sean Whittington last night, and he actually asked me about spirits of animals, and I referred him directly to you. I was like, you got to talk to Rob Gutro. I kind of gave my little answer to it, but you're pretty much the expert in that realm, and the animals of spirits coming back and visiting their owners.
Well, thanks. I have such a love for animals, and as you guys know, I've worked for animal rescue, dog rescue, for like the last 10 years as another hobby, in addition to the paranormal and meteorology and all that other stuff.
So. I have to share something with you, Rob. You're going to be so proud. Okay, because I'm not the animal gal. I send people to you because you're the animal dude. Okay, but I was doing a reading for somebody. Obviously, the readings are private, so I'm not going to go into great detail. But for the first time in a long time, and it's only happened a handful of times, when I was doing this reading, this person asked me about another individual, and what was the first thing that popped into my mind, and it was this little dog, and I described the dog to her, and she goes, "Oh my gosh!" And it was to a T, exactly the way the animal looked, its breed, everything.
Wow.
And she goes, I can't believe he's coming through. And I said, because he wants her to get another dog.
Wow.
And she was just absolutely amazed, and promised to pass the message along, because it wasn't the person I was doing the reading for. It was somebody else.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. So this little animal came through to me for a reading of somebody else, but was for someone else they knew.
Yeah, I talk about that a lot when people ask me why they can't get signs, and I will tell them that sometimes your grief may be blocking the signs from your loved ones, but your loved ones in spirit will find a way to get the message to you, even if they have to go through somebody else. So
boy, do they!
Awesome, they sure do.
That's happened more times than I could count.
Yeah.
Even for strangers, I've had to seek people out on social media.
Yeah,
Wow.
we do have a specific question here from
Yes.
David Y. Does Rob believe that a fur baby pet can be a kindred spirit for a person?
Well, I believe that it can be a spirit guide, certainly, because I know that because Buzz, my Weimaraner, has come back as a spirit guide to me after he passed. So, and they really are your best friends. They really are kindred spirits to us. And that's that's why I named that book Kindred Spirits, is because this guy that I never met communicated with me 14 years, and he became like a best friend.
Yeah.
So yes, absolutely, animals can be your kindred spirits as well as your spirit guides, and you can have more than one spirit guide.
Oh yeah. I think people get confused on that. You can have many because situations dictate different guides.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I've had two different people, like years apart, and they did not know each other, tell me that I had 10 spirit guides, and I don't know if that's true, and I'm not trying to say, oh, okay, how many spirit guides I have, nothing like that. 10 has always been a number that's followed me around, so I always found that interesting, but yeah, the idea that, like you were saying, Vanessa, multiple spirit guides serving multiple functions, so kind of bringing it back to the pets with Rob, would a pet serve as a function there as one of your guides?
Yes, absolutely. So I wonder if the number of spirit guides that you have says something about your life and the stage.
It means I need a lot of freaking help.
that really wasn't what I was trying to get at. But
Let's go with that. Okay, let's go with that. You have a lot of stress and a lot of responsibility.
Oh, gosh.
I'm going to put a positive spin on this.
Okay.
Yeah. You have
That's
a
where I
lot
was going.
Yeah. He has a lot of stress and a lot of responsibilities, and a lot of people depend on you, Mike. So
Yes.
sometimes your guidance might take a joint effort.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, that's a nicer way to put it. Yeah.
Yes. Also, some of your spirit guides are actually trying to push you in the direction of past lives, and to it's like they are leftovers from your previous lives that are trying to remind you of situations, habits, encounters, and goals that you had in those particular lives. So you have your guides of today that are helping you do what you need to do, but then you also have your previous guides of a past life that are always there, constant reminder, trying to bring you full circle. So there's absolutely nothing wrong with that. They're very much involved in your writing, in your need to travel, and in your need to explore and discover different things. That is where that comes from. That isn't the current ones, that's the past ones.
Wow. Should I get them each, since we're talking holidays, should I get them each Christmas presents? As like a thank you?
Just say something sweet for them and light a candle.
All right.
That's all it takes.
Oh, there you go. Okay.
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay.
Sorry.
No, it's fine. But I guess kind of, but playing off of that, and wrapping it back into the holidays and everything, Rob, would you find that around the holidays is perhaps a time in which spirit guides maybe play a little bit more of a role for people?
I do think so. Yes. As Vanessa mentioned, travel actually certainly is one of the ways that spirit guides will help us make sure that we get from one place to another traveling during the holidays. Even learning how to put up with family members that you don't necessarily agree with.
There's that.
Yeah, sometimes that takes a few spirit guides. So yeah, I think that they all help us during the holidays. But they're some of the other things I wanted to talk to you about in terms of the holidays are the earthbound ghosts too, because they tend to come out around the holidays.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
So I can highlight one of the stories that I wrote in my first book, Ghosts and Spirits, and I called it the Three Ghosts of Christmas Past, like the Charles Dickens novel. Have either of you been to the Ford Theater in Washington, D.C.?
No.
I have. Yeah, I've been there.
Okay. So the Ford Theater is well known because in that theater, that's where John Wilkes Booth assassinated President Lincoln. And Lincoln actually was brought across the street, and he passed away in a house across the street. But,
right.
So there's a lot of energy in that theater. When you were there, Mike, did you encounter anything?
I can't say that I did. When I actually visited, I was a kid. I was like 9 years old, something like that. Because what was that? The summer? No, it was spring break when I was in 4th grade. And it's funny, I ended up working like right around the corner from it. That last year I was in Maryland. It walked by it all the time, but never stepped back in. So go figure that. But I went to where they the house, the boarding house where they plotted the murder, because now it's a Chinese restaurant.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
I didn't know that.
Yeah, the old Surratt boarding house is now Walk and Roll.
No.
Yes. But they have a nice plaque on the side of the building that tells you what it was.
I like puns, but that one hurts.
Yeah.
Yeah. So when I went to the Ford's Theater, here's what's interesting about the experience that I had there, because it was later verified by 2 other mediums. And neither of them had any knowledge of what I encountered there. So in the Ford's Theater, I went in because the National Park Service would give you a historic overview, and they would make you sit in the seats, the theater seats, and they still do productions there and so forth. So we sat there, and while we were sitting there, there was a man that came up to me, and he was dead. Actually, he was he was apparently an actor there before, and he was trying to get my attention, but I kind of waved him off. It wasn't until I encountered the second ghost that was there that I found out she was an actress, and she was an actress during the time that President Lincoln was assassinated. And what she showed me really made me do a double take. She showed me President Lincoln's coffin being taken through the street of Washington, D.C. And she showed me that there was a black cloth draped over the coffin. Now, I didn't know that. I wasn't, what I know is that, and I live near Washington, D.C., they always drape a flag over the coffins. So when I get home, I looked it up. Well, sure enough, there was a black drape put over the coffin of President Lincoln. So it's amazing what messages and what visuals that ghosts can share with you. Now, she stayed behind because she loved the theater, and she's still there today. But the visual cues that help confirm, that they still inhabit that place, are pretty amazing. The third ghost of Christmas Past, if you will, that I encountered was the most infamous ghost, John Wilkes Booth.
Ah.
And he wasn't in the theater. What was really weird is that he was in the gift shop.
Really?
Yeah.
Okay.
Now, I know that, of course it wasn't a gift shop back then, but I'm not even sure it was part of that building back then. It might have been built out. It could have been the alleyway in which he went. He jumped on the horse. Do you happen to know?
Yeah, I don't know now what that alleyway is. But it's a possibility. It would make sense. I know more of his trek after he left Washington, when he went to the Surratt house and then the Mud House and all of that.
Mud House, yeah. Yeah, and I've been to actually both as well.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
and I had some interesting encounters with Dr. Mudd himself. But what's fascinating is that when I went in the gift shop, I wasn't even thinking about him, because the gift shop is the very first place that I went before we went in for the tour. We were waiting for the tour, and I sensed that there was a man standing there, and he was very arrogant, and he was very haughty, and very proud of himself. And I started asking questions, telepathically, as we do, because if you ask out loud and there's nobody there, people throw you out.
Yeah, they might think you're a little weird, right?
Yeah. No, yeah, they do.
Yeah.
Vanessa, how many times have you asked a ghost questions?
I used to do it all the time when I was first starting out publicly. Mm-hmm. And I learned real quick that doesn't fly in polite society. So now if I'm being filmed, I'm talking in my head and I have to be reminded to say it out loud. I learned the hard way. The gentleman that you're talking about was full of hubris.
Yeah, he was. And he still is. Mm-hmm. So when I was in this gift shop, he told me that this was his proudest, the site of his proudest moment. And I thought, wow, this guy is really a jerk. And he's giving up very bad energy. So I went over and I asked the people that work at the gift shop. I said, have you ever had any issues with the electricity going on and off, or maybe an alarm going on and off?
Right.
And they said yes. They've had plenty of experiences both. Mm-hmm. So I said, okay. So that confirmed to me that there was, in fact, an entity there. So when I was walking through, I got the urge to stop. I felt like somebody was actually guiding me to a part of the gift shop, and I turned around, and there was the display of John Wilkes Booth's stuff.
Wow.
And that confirmed it for me.
Yeah, because they have his boot there on display, right?
I think they do. It's in the basement museum.
Okay.
Yeah.
Because I thought I remember the people at the Mud House making that reference back to Ford's Theater.
So what's interesting is that over the 2 or 3 years afterward, in the 2 or 3 years afterward, two other mediums that I've grown to know very well, and they have become my friends, both went to Ford's Theater. We took our friend Ruth Larkin. She's known as the Beantown medium. She works out of the Boston area. We took her there, and she was in the gift shop, and I didn't say anything about it. And she came over to me and she said, "There's a really arrogant jerk standing over here. He's a ghost." And I said, mm-hmm. And he said, "Do you know who he is?" And I said, "Well, look at where you're standing." Sure enough, she was standing right in front of the John Wilkes Booth display. So she knew who it was. And then my friend Troy, who is also a medium on Inspired Ghost Tracking, he texted me and he said, "Hey, Rob, I'm in Ford's Theater, and I'm in the gift shop, and there's a really arrogant ass that's in here." And he said, "He is really a jerk." And he said, "Is that John Wilkes Booth?" And I said, "Yeah, that's the guy that I sensed that was in there." So
everybody's picking up on him.
Everybody's picking up on him, yeah. And and none of us, none of us said anything to anybody else until we compared notes.
So all separate compare. Yeah, okay, that's very cool.
That is. I need to go there now. One of these days. I'm getting there. Okay.
So we do have some questions and comments coming in from the chat, kind of back on some of our previous topics, but I don't want to forget about them. From Zippy Davis, what are your thoughts on Krampus, since we were talking about holiday spirits?
I thought Krampus was a made-up thing, so I'm going to have to defer to you guys. I didn't even see the movie.
Yeah, I haven't seen the movies or anything like that. My understanding is it is based off of some German legend, and you'd think I would know more about it. I have a German lineage, but I really don't. So.
It's a very there to my knowledge, I am by no means an expert, but there isn't actual evidence of Krampus existing. Krampus was essentially what parents would tell their kids about to try to keep them from being naughty, is my understanding. That Krampus, instead of Santa Claus coming, Krampus would come. And it is Germanic in nature, but that is the minimal amount that I know of the actual story. So, but not unlike the Boogeyman or, something else. Well, same type of situation.
Yeah, like the Mexican legend of La Llorona is supposed to be kind of the same thing, to scare the children and keep them in line.
Exactly right. Okay. So that's my understanding, but not a basis in fact.
By the way, Mike, I saw your video on La Llorona, and it was extremely well done.
Thank you.
And by the way, Vanessa, I know a little German.
Uh-huh.
He lives down the street from me. He's about 4'10".
That's funny.
Sorry. I covered up the mic.
You still heard it.
Sorry. Sorry. That's my bad. Yeah, I'm German. I'm third generation American, and I know very, very, very little. My grandpa is first generation American. He was born in 1894.
Yeah, actually, ich spreche ein bisschen Deutsch. So.
Yeah, Gesundheit.
Yeah, I know. Don't you say 6 is sex?
Sex, yeah. Well, I mean, everybody knows that from National Lampoon's European Vacation.
That's how I know it. I'm looking for sex. There you go.
Yeah.
So. Yeah, that's me.
couple other questions. Well, actually, this is a couple of comments from Rebecca Gardner. She first said, "I constantly hear the tick, tick, tick of our dog we had to put down after 14 years across the linoleum floor. She only settles down once I tell her I hear her." And then she says, "I would love to know why my spirit guides have gone on strike. At least it seems that way."
Well, spirit guides really only come to us when we really need them. So it seems to me that since your dog passed, your dog has actually become your main spirit guide right now, because you had a very, very close bond with him or her. So that's why you continue to hear the nails on the floor.
Interesting.
I would agree with that. Yeah. Most definitely. And sometimes it feels like they're going on strike, but a lot of times it's simply because we can become just like mediums. When people go to a medium constantly, they become dependent upon them to make their choices. Spirit guides, same type of situation. Sometimes we have to just be responsible for ourselves.
That's true.
And to remember the teachings, that we've had, the lessons that we've learned in order to make our own way, because there is such a thing as free will. And nobody can jack with free will, including the spirit guide. So if you feel like you've been abandoned, it's because they trust you enough to make your decisions on your own.
Makes sense.
Sometimes it is that simple.
So speaking of spirit guides, Alina asks, how do we communicate or reach out to our spirit guides best?
Well, the way that I first got in touch with my spirit guide, or one of my spirit guides, was through a guided meditation. Someone that I know put on soft music and presented a scenario where you picture yourself in like a forested area, and you walk through the forested area toward the rising sun, and eventually you come out to a clearing, and standing in the clearing is somebody waiting for you, and they will introduce themselves, and that would be your spirit guide. I mean, I really cut that way down, but it's like a 20-30 minute thing, and you can find those things online, I think, too.
Okay. Mm-hmm. So just do a little Googling and you can find some good information. Mm-hmm. I know we had I think it was about maybe a year ago now. The first time we had Kelly McCarville on, it ended up being like a huge spirit guide conversation, and she ended up speaking at the Haunted Road Media Paracon about spirit guides. So you guys can go back to the Haunted Road Media channel after this is done and and go find that video for more information about spirit guides. So that was a pretty
Maybe you
good
could
one.
share that one, Mike. Share that one again.
I could go ahead and share that out for sure.
All right. So we were talking about ghosts and spirits on holidays. So I addressed the ghosts on holidays, but there's also spirits. So and spirits of our loved ones will always come around. I remember back one Thanksgiving, I think it was about 7 years ago. My friend Lynn had lost her brother many years ago, and he actually came to me to tell me that he was actually sitting at her Thanksgiving table this year, and he gave me he gave me all kinds of things that I shared with her, and she said that year that she was really, really missing her brother, and it had been years since he had passed. But she had imagined that he was sitting at her table when in fact he was, because he came through to me. And that's just a note for everybody that's listening, is that the spirits of your loved ones really do sit at your table around the holidays and any kind of celebration.
And it's not uncommon in many cultures to leave a place setting for them.
That's true.
And I think when you talk about breaking bread with somebody or sharing the one thing that we all love, that is food, and food is the epitome of love, when you're talking about especially the holidays, set that extra place setting, set that extra, the glass and the silverware and the plates, and you don't have to put anything on it. It's an acknowledgement. That's all it is. And there's absolutely nothing wrong with that. That will not hold a loved one to this earth if they're not meant to be here. So for those who have been told that, knock that shit right out of your head. Okay. Acknowledging your loved ones who have passed does not mean you're causing them harm and making them stay. It means you're acknowledging them, and that is great.
Yes, and relative to that, I just answered a question that I got on social media yesterday. Someone said that they had taken home the ashes of their I think their brother who passed away, and they were concerned that it would hold their brother's spirit here on Earth. And I just want everybody to know that no, that doesn't do that. Once we pass, the energy within us combines with our memories and our personality and our knowledge, and we choose to stay earthbound at a fixed location of our choosing. That's what I call a ghost. Or we cross over and join the energies of the universe or heaven or whatever, and that's what I call a spirit. So I told her, I said, your brother has already crossed over. Those ashes will not hold him. They don't act as a prison. They're just really remnants of physical life left behind. They can draw him back to the ashes, but they're not any kind of a holding
anchor
cell.
Yeah. Well, let's go ahead, Rob, and call a spade a damn spade. There are those in this field that believe that instilling fear or regret or sadness makes this more important, when
True.
in fact, finding out and communicating with and respecting and acknowledging those who have passed is the most important thing. It doesn't you don't need anybody else to talk to your deceased loved ones. You don't need me. You don't need anybody else. You're allowed to talk to them. You're allowed to acknowledge them. You're allowed to love them. You're allowed to communicate with them. And for those that are out there telling you that you are not because you're causing damage, they are causing irreparable damage by putting that thought in your head. Get that shit right out of there. And it makes me mad. It makes me very angry. Because when somebody is grieving, the last thing they need to be told is that they're causing their loved one to be unhappy or causing damage. That's the last thing they need to hear.
Sure. And it's never true.
It's never true.
Yeah,
it just means that they're wanting you to keep coming back and keep giving them money. Because they're the only ones that can talk to them. Bullshit. I'm calling bullshit. So I had my piece. I'm done.
So and that's why, as you know, that's why I've written the books that I've written, is that to teach people how their loved ones communicate from the other side. And there is a difference between the way that ghosts, earthbound ghosts, will communicate versus spirits that will communicate. And one of the main ways that people should know is that spirits can come to us in our dreams. I've found that ghosts have a harder time to do that. Earthbound ghosts really have a hard time to do that. I mean, ghosts can be standing next to you when you're sleeping, and make you feel like somebody's standing over you. Even if you're sleeping, you can sense that presence. We all do that. I'm a light sleeper, so when a nightlight goes out in the other room, I wake up. So, and it's the same thing. Is if you're staying in a haunted place, if you're a light sleeper, you may wake up. If a ghost, an earthbound ghost, walks into your room, has that ever happened to either of you?
I'm a wide open fucking book, so they just it's like this the majority of the time.
Okay.
Those that you call ghosts and those you call spirits, it's constant. So it's hard for me to differentiate. They're just there.
Yeah.
I mean, I've had the visitations in dreams before after my grandparents had passed on, and I know for a fact it was them, and they were trying to help me through a difficult time in my life, and it was kind of interesting because they were trying to let me know that everything's okay, and I'm just constantly asking, well, how are you guys doing? Because I just missed them so much. So they're trying to reassure me while I'm just more interested in that they're okay when they're perfectly fine. So
but that's beautiful.
Yeah, it was a really nice moment.
Yeah, that's those happen more often than people think. They just poo-poo it away.
Yeah.
It didn't happen, or they rationalize it. Don't always have to rationalize the beautiful. Sometimes it just is.
Yeah, sometimes those things happen. We do have some more questions down here from the chat room related to some of the different things that we're talking about. So from Basis 1945, Rob, what is the difference between a spirit guide and a guardian angel?
Oh, that's a good question. Well, a spirit guide is definitely someone who's very personally connected to make sure that you live life in not only a good way, but it helps you through a lot of the obstacles. I guess a guardian angel can be considered the same thing, because unless a guardian angel can also be considered like a family member. I think that's just really a generic term, guardian angel, because the spirit of a loved one can prevent you from getting seriously injured in a car accident when the car is totaled. And I've seen people walk away from totaled cars, and I know that someone in spirit is with them. And they'll say, oh, my guardian angel is with me, but I think it's a spirit of a loved one.
Yeah, people have reported having somebody pull them out of the car when there was absolutely nobody else there. And so, who or what was that?
Perception of faith was really the only difference. If you're Catholic or Christian or Baptist or Pentecostal, you might call them your guardian angel. If you're a pagan or heathen or agnostic, you might call it spirit guide. It really just is perception of faith.
Cool.
That's a good point.
That makes sense. From Leslie Fear, how can we find out our spirit guides' names or if they're related or not?
Again, it all comes back to going online, going on YouTube somewhere, and having maybe a guided meditation. And I know that they're online somewhere. You can find 20-minute meditations that will make you sit and relax, close your eyes, and take you through that wooded path kind of scenario that I described earlier. That's probably the easiest way.
Okay. Yep. So Google.
Yeah, Google.
It is the technology age, y'all. Google that shit. Okay?
Yes.
Yeah.
So you'll be all right.
By the way, Mike, I know that every time I come on, we talk about my books, but I really wanted to remind people that you have some incredible books with the Encounters of the Paranormal here.
Yeah, you mentioned you wanted to talk about those.
I know. Well, I want to make sure that I talk about.
You have some fantastic contributions to those.
We're we're running out of time. So, but no, there are so many great authors that have and paranormal experts that have put stories in there that I think that everybody really should read them, and they're all really short. So, you can read a great story of an amazing experience in the 4 volumes. Are you doing another one?
Yeah, we'll be doing a 5th. I did not do one this past year because I was working on the Shadow Person book, A Walk in the Shadows, which you also have contributed to, and that'll be coming out January 21st. So, I haven't made it official or anything like that. I have been thinking about putting another one together for this fall. I don't have a location pinpointed yet. So each of the last 3, we've picked a location that the proceeds will go to help. So like the one right here, proceeds go to help the fairy plantation. So we haven't picked out a location for a 5th book yet. So
okay.
Once we do, then the ball will probably get rolling and we'll start collecting stories again.
Well, I will say that one of my favorite stories is my experience with Shana when we investigated the old mineral springs.
Yeah, which is in this one.
Yeah, and I mean it's kind of a long story, but together we were in sync with each other the entire night.
Right.
So everybody needs to pick that volume up. What is it? Is that volume 4?
It's volume 4, yeah. So it's the chapter is Medium Sync to Solve Mineral Springs Mysteries. Rob Gutro and Shana Wankel. And so there's Mineral Springs. And then there is the fantastic illustration of the little girl. Now, what's interesting about this, Rob, I can't remember if we told you or not, or if the story may have gotten around to you, but we actually, at the last Paracon that we had there, we actually saw the girl. There were 5 of us that saw her.
Oh my gosh!
Yeah,
no.
Yeah, it was really, really interesting. Yeah, she was, and I recount the story in A Walk in the Shadows.
Oh, cool!
Because the way it started off was it was black smoke down coming from the end of the hall, and it started as it was coming toward us. It was kind of creeping up the wall and then coming back down, creeping up the wall, coming back down, and then it creeped up the wall one more time. It kind of stayed there, and it morphed into the little girl.
Wow.
Yeah, it was really, really interesting. So it was me, Shana, Tom McNicholas, Nick Moulet, and Dustin Samario who all saw that. So it was really cool.
That's amazing. Well, I wonder if you're going to see her again this year.
I hope so. I definitely want to go back. We've when we have gone back, we've tried to interact with her and haven't really gotten much since then. Shana really, of course, has that interaction with Molly. Molly kind of follows her around now from the one room upstairs. But yeah, I mean, we had always heard about the stories of the little girl there, and you had recounted it in that book, Encounters with the Paranormal, Volume 4, and then we finally saw her. So, and it was down that hallway where her quote unquote room is at, and we were trying to coax her forward, and she did, and basically stopped right at that door, which is supposed to be her room.
Okay.
So, yeah, it was really interesting.
Well, while we're on the topic of books, I have to throw a plug in there for a book by Vanessa that I just finished reading called "Giving Up the Ghost." I think that
cool.
Everybody needs to read this book because it's like an autobiography of how a medium came to really explore her talents, and you feel like you're walking through Vanessa's life with her right there. And experiencing all kinds of things. So it's Giving Up the Ghost by Vanessa Hogle.
Thank you. I would love for you. I talked about New Orleans in that book. I would love to go there with you.
Oh, I'm sure that would be fun.
Yeah.
So I was there. I was actually in New Orleans for the first and only time in May 2005, just 3 months shy of Hurricane Katrina.
Mm-hmm.
And there were dead people all over the place when I was there.
Yeah.
And when Hurricane Katrina hit, I believe that there were over 1,100 people who drowned as a result of the levees being breached. So I think I think there's quite a few more.
You can't throw a stone and not hit a dead person. You know, I mean, there's so many, and they're so loving. They're so loving. I talked at one point in time in the book, I think I put this in the book, where we were coming from the Garden District. The streetcars didn't work, even though the hotel told us they did. So we're, you know, my little chub.
She locked up on us.
She did.
That happens with her sometimes. Her internet connection will just suddenly, whoop, will go kaput.
But I don't know why. Yeah.
Oh, now she's back.
Here I am. Yeah, I have the best internet in Oklahoma, so why it's doing this, I have no idea. But no, I was walking in right there in front of St. Louis Cathedral, right there in Jackson Square, and this woman came up and hugged me and asked me when I was coming home, and told me she was so happy to see me.
I remember reading that. Yes.
And the warmth that I felt from her I can still feel it today. And it's my Mecca. It's my heart. I love it down there. And they seem to love me. So go figure.
So that leads to another thing that I always like to tell people about. When you are drawn to a place or drawn to a time in history, that means to me that you lived there before. And,
absolutely.
Yeah. And I think we
I believe that.
With me when I went to Tombstone, Arizona for the first time, and I gave somebody directions to the courthouse without even knowing where the courthouse was. And then I had to go follow my own directions, and sure enough, the courthouse was there. And I was dumbfounded. I thought, how do I know that?
And there's no rhyme or reason.
Yeah. So then I did a past life regression. It was in a yoga studio. They had a guest there, and I did it. And sure enough, the past life regression showed that I was living out in the outskirts of Tombstone. I was I don't remember what I was doing, but I could actually see how I was dressed, and I had a dog. There was a hound dog.
You know, that makes a lot of sense.
Behind me. So that also, translated to my affinity for loving dogs in this life.
Absolutely. I'm sure you read about it in Giving Up the Ghost. I found the house I actually lived in.
I did.
And I stood there and
amazing.
Cried. I stood there and cried. I found at the actual home that I lived in, and it's still owned by this particular family that's owned it for 100 some odd years, and it's unkept. They just pay the taxes on it. They won't let anyone in. They won't let anyone touch it. They won't let anyone tear it down. Nothing. But I stood there and cried.
Yeah, I don't have Giving Up the Ghost with me right here, but I do have your Rebel Witch book here. So there's that.
Yes.
So another example of being drawn to a place that reveals that you lived there one time happened with my husband Tom, and this is something that I wrote about in my book, Ghosts of England on a Medium's Vacation. Because when we went to, this is the book here, when we went to England, before we went to England, Tom had no abilities as a medium whatsoever. In fact, he would say to me all the time, he said, I wish I could feel things the way you do. I wish I could sense people who passed, et cetera, et cetera. And I said, well, who knows what's going to happen? You have the ability, but you have to learn how to use it. And of course, when you're married to someone, they say, yeah, whatever.
True story.
Yeah. But we went to, it was Westminster Abbey, and suddenly he started smelling like a rotting corpse. And he said, there's somebody standing in that corner area where the king's tomb is. And I walked over there, and sure enough, I sensed the same entity. And I said, what's going on with you? As we walked through there, he kept smelling a rotting corpse. There's a lot of ghosts in Westminster Abbey.
Yeah, I've been there.
Yeah, one that pulled our hair at the same time, as a matter of fact. And I wrote about that in there. And for the rest of our trip in England, we were confirming each other's readings about the ghosts that we encountered. So he was drawn to England. He's always been drawn to England. And that proved to me that he lived there before.
The southwest area of England is London is where he lived.
Okay. Very cool.
Yeah, the southwest section of town is where he lived.
Yeah, I need to have him talk with you.
Yeah.
We also found out that he lived in Ireland too, in another life. Before that.
In the northwest part of Ireland, but not Northern Ireland.
Do you know where the Dingle Peninsula is?
That is a northwest, but it's Northern Ireland northwest. Over by Donegal?
I'm not sure.
I think it might be, but it is on the west side.
It's on the west side.
He was northwest of Galway.
Yeah, that makes sense too, because when we were there, he actually did a past life regression. Mm-hmm. And when he did it, he described this house that he lived in. Mm-hmm. When we visited the Dingle Peninsula, there was a museum. We went inside. They had a recreation of houses that existed like in the 11 or 1200s. Mm-hmm. And he said, this is exactly the house that I described. And he freaked out. Mm-hmm. So he's lived in England, he's lived in Ireland, and it's just pretty amazing. So for everybody who's listening, think about what you find appealing, because that is a clue to who you were or where you lived in a previous life.
Absolutely. Speaking from experience, yes.
Yep, makes sense. We do have a quick question here. I know we're getting down toward the end of the show, but from Alina, since it's on the topic, have we all lived another life, or are some of us new?
Oh, I think we've all lived another life at this point. I think that we all keep coming back. And we keep coming back, and when you come back, by the way, your pets come back with you in one way or another. They're also attached to you. And I found that usually we wait for our contemporaries to pass before we all come back.
Okay.
There are exceptions.
So your soul family, or whatever you might call it, kind of, they all wait until, okay, everybody's here, and then we come back? Mm-hmm. Okay.
Everybody you know in life.
You go up there, have a party, and then, okay, we've partied enough. Time to go back.
So I'm looking forward to a lot of wagging tails when I.
Yeah. There you go.
Yeah, we go off to a keg or just waiting. Okay.
This is a interesting question earlier from Victoria M. Rob, what is your take on taking a loved one's ashes and making a diamond or some other gemstone out of it?
Oh, I think it's perfectly fine to do that. It really, as a spirit on the other side, they recognize how much they meant to you, and they're often flattered when you do something like that.
Okay.
Anything
Fair
to
enough.
remember a loved one is,
Absolutely.
nothing wrong with that.
Yeah, maybe we don't do it so much anymore, but some cultures used to have like large shrines to all the different ancestors, and now we just we have the memorials at the cemeteries. But once it's gone, a couple of generations, people kind of forget. The headstones are still there, but nobody really goes out there anymore. But yes, some of the older cultures, you see where they had like their whole, like all the ancestors were in one spot, and they keep going back and back. And so I've always really respected cultures that are like that.
To give people an idea of how important that was, I was in Edinburgh, Scotland, and there was a gentleman in a Greyfriars kirkyard. And yes, I've been there. It's a crazy place, y'all.
I've been there too.
Yeah. But Rob, you will know exactly where I'm talking about. He had died in like 1100 or 1200. And do you know when his memorial was erected? 1500 and something.
Oh my gosh.
So
wow.
300 to 400 years after his death, his memorial was erected. That goes to show you that there's no time stamp on how long you can mourn or grieve or miss somebody. If the lineage of a family is going to wait that long until, for whatever reason, they can go ahead and erect it. And it was quite beautiful. It's quite beautiful. When you walk into Greyfriars Kirkyard, you go through the little thing, you go straight up and go to the right, and it's right on that back wall. And it's right over there with the ones with the skull and crossbones on it. I have a picture of me pointing up at it because I just couldn't believe it. I couldn't believe 300 to 400 years had passed till his memorial was erected.
Wow.
That is amazing to me.
Yeah, that's amazing considering, like, Shana and I will go out and, check out the abandoned cemeteries, and it's like, okay, this is like only 100 years ago and it's all, overgrown. Nobody's coming out here anymore. It's a shame how we, forget just a couple generations ago, and you're talking, a few hundred years before they finally erect the memorial, and now it's there for all time. So that's amazing to me.
It really is. Yeah. I mean, I've been in cemeteries in England where you see the same thing, but you're talking about graves that are 800 years old.
Yeah.
And of course they've fallen into disrepair, but there's so much more a level of respect in the other countries for the deceased than we see here.
Yeah.
It truly is.
All right. So we're really down to like the last couple minutes here, and, it was a fantastic time, Rob, having you on, especially with the new Edge of the Rabbit Hole channel. Where can everybody find you in your books?
They can find me at robgutro.com or petspirits.com. And all the books are on Amazon. And I'm also on Twitter and Facebook. So.
Cool. Awesome. Definitely. And what do you have coming up for events or anything else you might have going on?
Well, I'm going to be doing a couple of lectures at the Inspired Ghost Tracking group in March and April.
Okay.
And I've got a lot of pet rescue fundraisers going on this year. I'm already booked out. I think I have 4 or 5 in New England already. So all kinds of things. Plus, I'm writing my 7th book, which is all about some of the investigations that I've been on with Inspired Ghost Tracking.
Oh,
Yay.
Very cool. Very cool. I'll be looking forward to that.
Thanks.
Yeah, because Inspired Ghost Tracking, definitely a fantastic group. If you guys are not following IGT, definitely check them out. So I gave Margaret a little shout out in the Walk in the Shadows book, so I'm sure she'll appreciate that.
I can't wait to read your book, Mike.
Yeah, it's I really appreciate your contribution to it. It really helped with that particular chapter. So, but I digress. Let's go ahead and get to the shout outs